I don't want to overreact, but this might be the least excited I've been to ever make a video on this channel. Oh dear lord. If you don't want to be spoiled on LTA finals and you haven't watched it for some reason, click off now. Otherwise, come sulk in my misery of 100 Thieves getting their absolute ass kicked and me taking a beating on social media. So I'm not gonna cut around anything. Let's just get to the takes. Prime says, I don't want to overreact, but Flyquest has peaked. The reign of terror is over. They'll lose to Shopify and Dignitas now when Blippo is not playing well. Dear Lord, dude, by all means, I'm happy that Flyquest lost. I'm happy that 100 Thieves was able to take that series, but nah, dude, that's just crazy. That's a league of its own. Look, they had a bad best of 3, or at least like the last 2 games rather than the first 2. Yes, Blippo got exposed. Yes, the team did not look all that great, but at the end of the day, no, I still have full faith that Flyquest will be able to bounce back. Masu is playing too well. I think Busio versus Ayla was like a really fun matchup to watch this weekend. Quad, I'm starting to be a little bit more iffy on. Like some of the clutch moments, some of the important moments like this, it seems a little bit more touch and go. At least he's not able to pop off in the ways that he was whenever they were dominating Summer and when he was playing at Worlds. Inspired, well, I mean, Inspired's kind of always been feast or famine whenever he does like his full, just absolutely clear jungle strat. Even in game 3 versus 100 Thieves, like he's up like 50, 60 CS, but when he couldn't count that into anything, when he couldn't like lead it into anything, yeah, it kind of sucks. And then Blippo, well, Blipper got beat by Sniper. So there's that. But it's not like everybody didn't get beat by Sniper. I mean, even Impact got solo killed by Sniper today. So it's like, yeah, maybe Sniper's just better than you think. No, I think this is an overreaction for sure. Flyquest is going to be fine. They're still a top 3 team in this league, in my opinion. I think C9 probably sitting just outside of that in 4th as of right now. But no, I'm not worried about Flyquest. They'll bounce back perfectly fine. Relax. Bean says, I don't want to overreact, but Yawn and Core will be on par with LPL and LCK bot lanes at first stand. Well, given that Humble Life just won, so we know it's going to be Viper that's going to be there. I don't know about that one, fam. I mean, look, it's tough. I don't know who's going for the LPL yet, but I will say that Yawn is like clear by far and away the best bot laner in the West right now. Hands down, bar none. The question is going to be Core JJ, because I think the difference in support elsewhere around the world is pretty substantial. We've seen Core go international multiple times now and not be able to live up to the standards that he has domestic, but our ADCs have been able to live up to that. So if it was just Yawn being on par with LPL and LCK ADCs, I would actually 100% agree with this take. I think Yawn is up there. Yawn has the confidence to be able to do that. I am 100% sold on that. Core, I'm not sold when it comes to the international stage, but they could pull it off. I do have confidence in TL in general when we get to that point. So fair on Yawn. CMC Alito says, I don't want to overreact, but 100 Thieves fans make it hard to root for 100T. They win a couple of games and they act like they can never lose or accept any criticism on the way the team plays. They act like Cowboys fans, and I'm not a Cowboy fan. Look, I'm not speaking for any other 100 Thieves fan here, nor anybody else in the room, but I will say, like, I've got tons of footage talking about this. I film an episode of The Rendezvous each and every week where I go over our problems, our successes, but I cover everything. So I know you ain't talking about me on that one. However, when it comes to the win couple of games and act like they can never lose, that part I don't get. But yes, I did get more vocal on Twitter over this past weekend. I got into it with Azale on Twitter because of, I believe, a disagreement. He was talking about international. I was talking about like the series with TL. And I get that we got smashed by TL. And yes, in hindsight, obviously, Azale's point proves to be right. But in a world where 100 Thieves is able to take this, like you go back to that point in time prior to knowing the result, because hindsight is 2020. No, I do think it was fair to give 100 Thieves more credit than they were necessarily getting in the public eye. As for Azale's cast, look, people can be biased, and I stuck up for Azale on his cast in that moment, but when you have hundreds of people calling out that they felt like it was pretty bad on Reddit, on Twitter, everywhere else, like not even just the org, just like people across social media, yeah, there is something to that. Clearly, there is a sentiment that resides there. I'll touch on the Azale thing in a minute. We'll keep that separate. But like for the 100 Thieves fans, look, 100 Thieves fans are starting to get more vocal. We are starting to have some sort of presence on social media. I know management can be a little bit iffy in how people perceive them, but I'm sorry, but I think people just don't like loud fan bases in this esport. People want like the cutesy side of things, which I definitely see with TL and with C9 at points, but like the loud trash talk that's more resemblant to TSM, which is in line with the Cowboys fans comment, you might not want that, but the esport needs it. So, sorry. Don't feel bad for that one at all. You can overreact and say it makes it hard for you to cheer for them, fine. But all I saw this split was more people cheering for 100 Thieves than we'd ever seen. Like, more people that were jumping on the bandwagon. So you might be alone in this one. It seems like more people hopped on the fan base than any other split in the past, other than the ones where we've won and back in the Someday era. Like, at least in the last, like, 2-3 splits. Yeah, I think this is probably the most successful one that 100 Thieves has had in a while. Speaking of which, Ray says, I don't want to overreact, but this is the weakest version we are going to see of 100 Thieves all year. I like this take. I don't even think that's an overreaction either. I think this squad honestly could just continue to get better as our macro continues to improve. Like, that just takes time. Like, look at the improvements that we have seen from the beginning of last year to the end of last year to now, even like the beginning of the split to now. Like, we are continuing to grow and develop. Yes, we are not at TL's level, clearly. But if we can continue to improve and continue to consistently contest teams like Flyquest, like C9, yeah, I think we're going to be fine. Look, TL, when they got Spawn back, like, he cracked the belt and nobody was coming close to what they had this weekend. Clearly, like, C9 didn't stand a chance, we didn't stand a chance, and if we beat Flyquest, if you think Flyquest stood a chance against TL, you're out of your freaking mind. So yeah, I'm 100% all in on this 100 Thieves squad continuing to grow. I think our top 4 is going to be incredibly entertaining as time goes on, and 100 Thieves need to continue to level up because only 2 end up making it to Worlds and only 1 makes it to MSI. So if anybody wants to contest TL at this point, yeah, we all got to level up. But my eyes are still on that world spot. Speaking of Spawn, Rusty Clutch says, I don't want to overreact, but I don't think TL wins the split if Spawn doesn't fly in. 100% agree. Like, I've said this for a long period of time. Look, this is going to spit in the face of me wanting to continue hybrid work and work from home in terms of my professional job. But I think at least in a sporting environment, for sure, having your coach on site makes a massive difference. For whatever reason, I doubt Spawn really changed much of what he said at the end of the day. But it just made a difference in person. Like, the difference between him being there and him not is just massive. Like, you can see it's night and day. It's so visible. Like, it looks like a completely different team when Spawn is there versus when he's not. And now, is this going to be a permanent thing? It doesn't sound like it. So Spawn, in his post-game interview, talked about his son. And the reason why he wanted to be home is that his son does require more attention as a parent. And he wants to make sure that he's there for him. So unless Spawn can find a way to get his family to move out to LA and North America, and I don't know if that comes with visa complications, whether his family actually wants to do that or not. Like, either way, like, they need to find a way to get Spawn here permanently if possible, because the difference between like remote and in-person TL is just unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Best Platno says, LTA, I don't want to overreact, but harass the casters some more. So let's directly tackle the Azael thing first and foremost here. I already talked about like my individual conversation with him, but I want to like just address commentary that I know is shared by more than just me, as is evident, and more than just 100 Thieves fans. This is evident by conversations I had at the bar today, as is evident by conversations I've had online. Look, there is underlying favoritism towards top teams in this league. It's always been like that. Like, when we dissect how teams win or lose in this league, like, it feels like it's always the top team or the better team is playing worse rather than the worst team playing better to win. And that comes through very clearly on commentary. It's not just a 100 Thieves thing. It's a general broadcasting that happens here in North America. Teams can be biased and Jesus Christ, casters, players, you name it. Like, all of it's fine. My biggest problem that I personally have is that I don't feel like there's very much counterweight. There are some people on the broadcast that are willing to have counter opinions, for sure, but it's not like when you have people that like really hype up Flyquest or really hype up TL, there's not much dissenting view on this type of stuff. Like, you have somebody that's pushing the Flyquest narrative or pushing the TL narrative. There's not many people like really like actually going in on the 100 Thieves narrative. There's some people that will stick up for them, and by all means, Azael, Flowers, many others have like stuck their necks out for them a little bit, but it's not the same. You want to know one of my biggest gripes, and I know this might cause some controversy, but like, I don't like Meteos being on the dive specifically. There are so many other analysts, casters, talent that aren't affiliated with orgs that I'd rather make sure are on that platform. Emily Ram, for example, why is she not on that podcast in particular? Like, I want her on that so bad. If she chooses not to, fine, whatever. But like, why do we have a C9 direct representative on that podcast? Whenever, like, obviously there's going to be a biased point of view, and I get some people will tune in for that, but like if you're tuning into an LTA product, like you have enough people that aren't biased like that, or that aren't directly paid for by an org, that are just going to like throw off power rankings, throw off other things. It's like, obviously he's never going to pick against him. Same reason why I should never go on that show, or like as a like consistent host. It would not be a good fit for me. You want somebody who like doesn't have like inherent paid for biases on there, because there's no counterweight. Like there's nobody else that's willing to push the other side of things. And that's the biggest problem that I feel like happens with the broadcast, and is what happened like at the later stages of TSM fandom, which is another group of people that like were really mad at Azale. Azale went hard at TSM and just did not give a shit about the fans that were there. There's a lot of isolationism, it feels like, whenever casters, Riot broadcast crew, etc., like you get this vibe that they don't like a team or just don't like the org behind it, and that comes across very clear. I mean, people can dispute that all you want. I've talked to enough TSM fans to know that like they tuned out pretty heavily when Azale was shitting on the org nonstop. Which, fine, the org did some messed up things, but like there are tens of thousands of fans of that org that had nothing to do with it, and just see their team get plastered with little to no sympathy for the fans, or at least not the amount of sympathy that you would expect for the amount of shaming that happened with it as well. That it's like, yeah, they tuned out, and given how many people watched finals this weekend, I think it's safe to say trying to make sure that we don't exclude those people is a pretty important thing, no? So look, I might have my gripes with this. I know Azale tweeted out that like, this is why casters don't interact on Twitter. Brother, I ate egg on my face today, as I obviously hyped up 100 Thieves, and I went through and I replied to every fucking hater against me and gave them credit, because you know what? They were right. Sometimes the haters are wrong. And I get that like the death threats are there. I've gotten them myself. Like that shit's not fun at all, obviously, but you block and you move on. Like this is an internet era. I get that social media is different than what it used to be, but you have to engage with this type of stuff. I've said it before and I'll continue to say it again. Broadcast does have a responsibility to help grow this game as well. And them being on social media and interacting and growing their personality and brand outside of just the show days is a pretty important thing. So no, I don't buy into like, just because I have a dissenting view with you in this moment, we should still be able to like talk about things afterwards and go buy a beer. I might tell you that your point is fucking dumb. Fine, but then just debate me on it. And then we move on and just enjoy our lives and keep talking League. But then we also bring attention and conversation to it. Ignore the people that are extreme and just talk to the normal folks. You don't just shut out social media because people disagree with your opinion or are honestly a little bit more visceral in their reaction otherwise. That's a good thing. There have been people tons of times that have come out and said like, oh, this David guy should be off of Twitter. He sucks. All this is like, okay, cool. I embrace that. That's part of it. That comes with like giving your opinions and being a forward-facing social media person. So look, I don't think the lashing out like this is really warranted to a certain extent. Just have the conversation with people rather than trying to one up, in my opinion. We're all posturing on social media for sure. I'm guilty of doing that myself. And even in portions of this conversation, I'm guilty of it. But like, we should all just talk to each other. Do that more. And do it in the public eye. That way people can interact as well. We hold each other accountable, we'll all be fine at the end of the day. And the final one that I'll address that I think like several people had was, I don't want to overreact, but the LTA is essentially shooting itself in the foot with this format, despite trying to appeal to an audience that they don't have, and complicit sacrifice and competitive growth between teams. Competitive growth between teams, I'm not even going to tackle that one. I just don't think that part matters. But I think the viewership numbers from this past weekend are not an overreaction in any way, shape, or form. They were terrible. It was bad. The combination of Brazil and North America, given that we're going to consistently knock out Brazilian teams early in these tournaments, is not going to be good. And it's going to be a while before Brazilian teams catch up, given that we don't compete in the same system enough to make them play better. So it's like, I don't know what Riot was thinking with this one. The more time goes on, the more I'm really, really hesitant on the LTA and worried about the future of all this. Those numbers speak for themselves. We can no longer, like, I've given up on the idea that we should be competing with Europe. We are too reliant upon European viewership. We should never, ever, ever, ever have another finals that conflicts with the LEC. I don't care if you have to put it off and wait until like they go long after like a 45-minute tech break. You wait. Or like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why this feels like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. But the one thing I will say, and I will put my stamp behind, the LTA branding is a failure. We're 2 months in. I'm willing to say it's a failure. It should have been the LCS. It should have been the CB LoL. And you can call the joint mergers whatever you want. But like this branding ain't working. That viewership shows. And to the people that are saying, oh, it's just split one with the bad format and all this, we're going back to best of ones with no fearless. This shit's gonna get worse. Or at minimum, not improve at all. I think split 2 is going to, like, split 1 of the LTA, despite the format woes, I thought was incredibly entertaining. Our problems and the reason why viewership is low have nothing to do with that, in my opinion. I think it just has to do with a lot of negative sentiment towards a rebrand and a rebuild that nobody really wanted at the end of the day. And Riot and most of the people that are working on this product out there that forced this change through, not having a grip on what was going to happen. It feels just like the weekday change where it was like common sense said this probably wasn't a good idea. And guess what? It turned out to be not a good idea. So I don't know what's going to happen from here, but these numbers got to change now. That is a failure, and that is going to cause people to lose their jobs real quick. Or it should, or it could be Riot and people continue to get promoted despite failures. Who knows? That's it for this week's overreactions. I'll have a rendezvous episode and a pit episode out later this week where we can hype up everything that happened for this finals. Obviously, like, it's the day of 100 Thieves lost. I know this video is going to be a little bit more down than it would be otherwise, given the community like grouping reactions around this as well, and this might be a little bit all over the place. I'm drained from a long day, but thank you to everybody that came out to the bars to watch. Some people got to watch me sorrow in the moment, but hey, I think we had like 60-70 people in total at most at one point, and I tried to make it a point to talk to everybody and say hi. If I missed it in any way, shape, or form, if I did not get a hold of you, I'm sorry. That's on me. Make sure you come out to me next time, and I'll make sure I have the conversation. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to everybody that subscribed over the course of the split. I think it was fun regardless, like I said, but who knows? We'll get into deeper conversations that aren't as overreactionary later in the week. See ya.